What if I told you that this entire media list that you're looking at now, which was built for a fictional commercial design company here in Los Angeles, was built within a minute by AI? Hi there. My name is Winston. Have you ever tried using ChatGPT to build a media list? If you ever have, especially if you did, if when it first was released back in November 2022, I bet you were either really disappointed or really relieved. Really disappointed because you were like, I thought this thing could help me more. Or really relieved because you were like, okay, there's no way this thing could ever take my job. But really, there were two problems. The first is you didn't have powerful enough tech at the time. And second, you didn't know how to use it correctly. Well, actually, that first problem's been solved. Over the last few months, thanks to something called AI reasoners, which have become extremely accessible to the general public. OpenAI released its first reasoning model back in September 2024. DeepSeek released it in January 2025. OpenAI and Perplexity both released deep research features in February. And Anthropic also released a hybrid reasoner in February and then gave it internet access on March 20th. So that problem's been solved. All that's left is the second thing, learning to use the tech correctly, and that's what this video is about. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use AI reasoners to improve the quality and efficiency of your PR. We'll do it in three parts. First, we're going to cover what a media list is and why you need help making yours. And when I say you, I mean anyone, no matter how long you've been in PR, even if you've done it for decades, even if you've made more media lists than, there are media contacts in the world. Why everyone needs help making media lists. Second, we're going to cover what AI reasoners are and why they're up to this particular task. And then third, we'll go through three examples of using AI reasoners to build media lists. So first, what's a media list? Why do I need help making mine? When I say PR, public relations, what do you think of? One of the first things that probably comes to mind is what we call earned media, which is getting media to cover your brand, your company's stories for free. By media, I mean traditional news outlets, reporters, editors, broadcast, radio, podcasts, bloggers, newsletters, influencers, content creators on every social platform, et cetera, et cetera. And then by your brand's stories, I mean your company's achievements, your founder's origin story, new products and features, customer testimonials, company growth, like revenue, funding rounds, M&A activity, big hires, personnel additions, or additions to your board of directors, that kind of thing. Now, earned media is the bread and butter for a lot of PR firms. A lot of PR firms, a lot of PR teams, if they're in-house, are measured by the quantity and the quality of coverage that they get for their brand. So, what do you need to get earned media? Well, one of the key ingredients, one of the first things that you're going to need is a media list, right? For every story that you want to tell, you're going to need a list of the people who would care about that particular story. But see, there are three big problems with media lists as they currently exist. The first is that they're super time consuming, which means that they're super expensive. Whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring someone to do it for you, whether you're using a CRM or a spreadsheet or something else, even if you're using tools like Muckrack or Cision or Prowly, takes time to build the list, takes time to edit it, takes time to keep it updated. I mean, people in media change jobs all the time, right? Newsletters come and go, podcasts start and stop, people change publications that they work for, they quit, they go somewhere else. People are moving up in the ranks. The landscape is constantly shifting, and so you have to keep your list updated. That takes time. Second, there's the delegation problem. See, the better you are at building media lists in PR, the less you're going to do it. On any PR team, the bulk of media list building is going to be assigned to an army of overworked, underpaid junior staff. Their titles are associate, specialist, coordinator, assistant. And by the time you've spent enough time in this play in this industry, you've met enough people, you've met enough media in your particular sector to know who's who and what's what. By then you're a manager. You're focused on biz dev and budgets, on hiring and managing stakeholders, such as your CEO, explaining to your CEO why their favorite reporter isn't going to just copy and paste from the press release into their article, especially because the press release contains words like innovative, disruptive, revolutionary, pioneering, groundbreaking, and every other buzzword. So there's the delegation problem. And then the corollary, the third problem, is that there's massive variation in the quality of media lists out there. First, they vary a lot in how comprehensive they are. By comprehensive, I just mean of everyone in the world who would be interested in the story that you're telling, how many of them are actually on this list? And then second, they vary in how precise they are. Of everyone on this list, how many would actually be interested in this story? And then third, there's all the other information they could contain, right? So table stakes, it's going to be name, publication, email, location. But does your media list also contain information about how and when each media contact wants to be contacted? Like what time of day, what day of week, email, phone, text? Does it have notes on past interactions you've had with that individual? Does it have links to previous coverage of your company or of your competitors? Does it tell you what coffee shop that person likes to meet at near their office or industry conferences that you're probably going to bump into them at because they attend them every year? You can see how all that information would be helpful, but not all media lists are created equal. So those are the big problems. That's where AI reasoners come onto the scene. See, they can quickly build a media list so high quality, it's like a veteran PR pro built it personally. And then actually along the way, they can actually teach us, humans, something about PR. So, what exactly are AI reasoners and why are they a good solution to our problem? Well, at this point, I feel like it might be helpful to quickly contrast AI reasoning models and AI chat models, since you're probably really familiar with AI chat models. They've been around for longer. AI reasoning models are really good at, reasoning, right? Slow, methodical, structured, multi-step problem solving. Whereas chat models are good at, chatting. They're good at conversations, taking inputs. So you go back and forth. You give it an input, it gives you an output, you iterate, that kind of thing. They're actually pretty appropriately named AI reasoners, AI chat models. So AI reasoners are a good solution to our problem because when you think about it, a good media list, when it's done well, it's just a really big task with a lot of subtasks, component steps, and that's where the intelligence kind of goes in, right? Is knowing which steps to put into place. So that makes AI good at it. It can also it's a good candidate for solving this problem because AI reasoners can spot our blind spots. They can show us what we've been missing and open our eyes to media that we haven't considered before and story angles with which to pitch those media contacts. So while you can use AI chat models to build decent media lists, and I can show you how, and there are a lot of videos that show you prompt engineering with AI chat models. A lot of you aren't going to have the patience for that. It takes a lot of hand holding. It's a lot more time consuming. We're just going to go straight to AI reasoners. So for this video, I'm going to be demoing three popular AI reasoners. First, we're going to be looking at OpenAI's O3 reasoning model, which powers its deep research feature, which you have to pay to get access to, and then Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet reasoning model, which a version of it's free, but you have to pay for the extended thinking mode, which improves performance. That's what we're going to be using today. And then there's Perplexity's deep research, which you get a limited number of uses for on the free version. So we'll take advantage of that. By the way, the point of this video is not to assess which tool is better at making media lists or doing one task better than the other, right? Because there are a lot of other reasoning models that we could consider. DeepSeek's R1, Grok, they're open source versions. There are a lot on the market. The point of this is not to like tell you, which one you should be using, whatever. It's just to kind of show you representatively what AI reasoners can do when it comes to building media lists. I also don't think it's that important to keep up with all of the different makes and models. These are constantly changing. They have weird numbering systems. Like at least the iPhone goes 1 through 16 with like a plus and an S thrown in there every so often. You can kind of keep track of that. These are just confusing. It's overwhelming. I wouldn't worry about it too much. The main point of today's video is going to be seeing how AI reasoners really help us build media lists, save a ton of time, a lot of energy, and if we don't have a background in PR, get us to a point where it's like you might as well have spent years and years in this industry because that's how good the output is. Okay, so here are the four examples that I want to show you today. The first example is going to be the longest by far because we're going to start from the beginning. As in, we're going to start pretending to know nothing at all about PR. Like all we know about in this example is going to be how to build a good prompt for a reasoning model. And as we go along in that process, I think what you're going to find is that the reasoner is going to teach us a lot of what we need to know. It's going to give us 5 basic principles of media list building, which I'm going to flash on the screen as we go along. And by the end of the process, you're going to have a media list that rivals a lot out there. The brand in that example that we're going to use is a hypothetical wealth management firm, and we're going to use OpenAI's deep research feature, which is powered by its O3 model. In the second example, sticking with O3, we're going to know something about PR. Our prompt is going to reflect that. So those 5 principles of media list building are going to be baked into the prompt, because in that example, we're going to say we are proficient in PR in addition to prompting the reasoner model. Okay, the reasoning model. The brand there is going to be an AI copywriting software startup. And like I said, we'll still be in O3. The third example is just going to take a couple of minutes because we're going to basically just use the same exact prompt that we used in the second example, except it's going to be for a commercial design firm, and we're going to use Anthropic Claude 3.7 Sonnet. And then for the fourth example is just going to take a few seconds because we're going to do the same exact thing except for Perplexity. Okay, sound good? Let's do it. Let's go ahead and get started with our first example. We're going to be a wealth management firm. That's going to be our company or our client, and we're going to be using OpenAI's O3 Reasoner. You'll notice that I've selected deep research down here. That's based on the O3 model. There's all these different models here. You get access to more with plans that you pay for, but in this particular case, we're going to be using O3. Now, we're also going to start in this example from the perspective of someone who has no experience whatsoever with PR. We're going to not have spent a single day in public relations. And I think you're going to find that that might, in some ways, work to our advantage here. We're not walking into this project with any biases or assumptions about what a good media list should look like. We're content to let the reasoner do its job. And that's actually really important with a reasoning model. See, if you've done prompting with chat models in the past, a chat model like ChatGPT, what you're used to, if you've written good prompts, is step-by-step chain of thought prompts where you're telling the AI, first do this, then do that, then the other, right? Step 1, 2, 3, 4. In other words, you're telling it not just what you need, but also precisely how to do it. And that's because chat models, as you might have discovered, are prone to getting lost in the instructions and losing track. So you need to kind of hold their hands along the way. With reasoners, it's the exact. You want to tell it exactly what you need, what the goal is in very direct, concise terms, but you don't want to be prescriptive at all when it comes to how to get there. You don't want to constrain or pigeonhole it because it's a reasoner. You want to let it do its multi-step problem solving on its own. That's the most important thing to know about prompting when it comes to reasoners, especially as it differs from prompting when it comes to chat models. But let's say in this example, we do know how to build a good prompt for a reasoner. And if you're familiar with those prompt formats, use a prompt format that you might have seen before. It's one of my favorites. I'm using task, deliverable format, watchouts, and context dump. Okay, so 4 sections. And in my tasks, and you'll notice that as we scroll down, I'm not telling the AI reasoner at any point exactly what to do. I'm not being overly prescriptive with how to accomplish its goal. All right. In the task, I'm telling it, this is another of those kind of popular prompting techniques. I'm telling it to assume a persona. I'm priming it to think a particular way. I'm telling it to create a media list for our firm. I'm telling it what I'm going to do with the prompt. Sorry, I'm gonna tell it what to do with the deliverable, namely to contact people who have influence over existing and potential clients, especially high net worth individuals and small business owners. Now, in this particular case, you'll notice that what I'm doing is I'm giving it my target audience. And as I promised, I'm going to show you principles of media list building along the way. I think this one, principle 1, is one that you should have known even without experience in PR, which is to start with your target audience. Principle 1 is to start with your target audience. Okay, so tell the reasoner up front when you're asking it to build a media list for you, ultimately who you're trying to get to, who is driving the bottom line, what your business objective is. Okay, in this case, high net worth individuals and small business owners. All right. And then I go to the format, the deliverable format. And you'll see a lot of the language here is because I've just done a lot of experimentation with building media lists with AI reasoners. I like to personally review the list as a table in the chat. I've found that as I add column sizes, sometimes I have to deal with horizontal scrolling. So I'm precluding that here. And then I've also found that sometimes the AI will give me a new table each time I ask for an edit. I don't want new tables every single time. I want one consolidated table that the AI is continuing to update. So that's why I have all the instructions here that I do. Watchouts. In this particular case, again, I don't think I need a PR background as an advisor to recognize that there are some, influencers or thought leaders out there who are competitors of mine, other financial advisors who maybe have big followings on LinkedIn or have media brands of their own. So in this particular example, I'm going to exclude them. Maybe for me, that's just not someone I want to try to get earned media from. And then of course, I'm going to ask the AI to verify that people are still working at the publications where it's seeing coverage from. If you've worked in PR at all, you know the frustration of you'll add someone to the media list because they had an article a couple of weeks ago that was relevant to you, and then you only to come and find out it's a week ago they moved to another publication or they quit or something. So we want to make sure that the contact information is as up to date as possible. And then here's the context dump. So again, if I don't have a background in PR, this is probably what I'm going to be dumping in is a bunch of boilerplate language about my firm. In this paragraph, this is just stuff that I made up for our fictional RIA called Coastal Wealth Partners. Here's an about section, about us section that I actually generated by putting this paragraph into ChatGPT. But then I was reading it and I was like, this sounds a lot like stuff that I've seen from other firms out there. So maybe that says something about the boilerplate that's out there. And then I have a fictional 10-person team. Jennifer Madsen, the founder and CEO. You'll see that AI loves the Ivy League and, go UCLA. My alma mater, there's a USC later on, unfortunately. But we have 10 of our co-founders. Okay. Or 10 of our leadership team. So this is our prompt. And when I hit send, Deep Research is going to start to think and it might ask some clarifying questions, which I'll answer, but we'll see what it comes up with. All right, so let's hit go. Okay, so as anticipated, the reasoner did come back with a few questions, 4 questions that, in my opinion, are pretty smart. These are questions that I'd be really happy to get back from whoever's doing the media building for me, the intern or the assistant that you assigned the task to. These are smart questions. Question number 1, which West Coast cities are your primary office locations or markets? Like that gets us closer to our target audience. That's a really important question to ask. Question 2, are you interested only in traditional media or also all these other formats? That's a great question. Question 3 is related. How about events and conferences? And questions 2 and 3, especially if you have no background in PR, are probably getting the wheels turning in your head like, oh, there are a lot of different types of media out there, right? And this illustrates what's going to become our second principle number 2 of media list building, which is that you got to think of all of the channels that reach your target audience, right? Once you've defined who you're trying to reach, you want to be thinking about where they can consume content the most. That might actually help you prioritize your media list real estate, where you want to focus your energy, whether it's podcasts or newsletters or events or blogs or social media influencers or a particular social platform. That might, obviously influence much more than your media list building. It might influence where you put your budget, where you put your team's resources, et cetera. In this particular case, just because I'm trying to illustrate how comprehensively the reasoner can build a media list, we're going to say yes to all of the above. But that's just a really good thing to know, is to start with your target audience and then think of all of the channels that reach them where they're at. Okay, question number 4 here. Should the list include editors and producers or only writers, reporters, content creators? In this case, we'll say yes to all the above again. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and answer these. Okay. And then we're just going to let it start. This is the amazing thing, right? It's doing all the thinking and it's telling you how it's thinking. So it's searching for financial podcasts for entrepreneurs. I guess that's the retirement plan bit. And then it's finding that there's not one list of all of the podcasts in the world, right? It's going to have to go through one by one. A more predictable method is what it's calling it. And then it's starting to find some names and publications and adding them to the list. Syndicated columns. So it's adding columnists to its search. So it just keeps going and going. We can come back to this. If you have operator access, you can, which is the agent, you can have it go to your LinkedIn and start doing searches within LinkedIn, just within the platform. Same thing with like X or Facebook or whatever platform you want it to go onto. And it just keeps going. So we're just going to let it work in the background, and we'll come back to it. Do your favorite, catch up on whatever Netflix show you're binging, or on other work that normally you wouldn't be able to get to because you're building a media list. Go ahead and do that and come back to it when it's done. All right, so here's what we've got. We've got our first draft of the media list. We got it in 7 minutes, which is incredibly impressive. If you've put together media lists before, and it cited 31 sources, so you can check all of these links. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 contacts. So decent start. We're obviously going to have to, to get a lot more than that. I'm seeing that the reasoner already put together the right columns. If you have seen any standard media list, you know that this is pretty much on par with the info that's there. So it figured that part out. So let's go ahead and scroll down, and we're going to kind of edit this list as we go. We're going to edit it as we would any other media list. You should always keep a human in the loop, right? With AI reasoners building media lists or any other tasks, right? That's true universally of AI work. You want to keep a human in the loop. So what does keeping a human in the loop looks like? Well, if I don't have a background in PR, I might be like searching each of these people online, punching them into ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Google, just to give myself an educational experience. That's how I want to treat this project. I want to learn what the media landscape that's relevant to me is. If I have, on the other hand, spent a long time in PR, or financial PR, I probably know a lot of these names off the top of my head. I'm going to be able to tell if they're a good fit or not, but they're also going to be names that I, probably haven't heard of. And those are going to be good new leads, so to speak, new additions to my, mental ledger and to my media list. So let's go ahead and look at some of these names. Liz Weston, have worked with her before. She's a personal finance columnist. She's not really with the LA Times. She contributes to a lot of different outlets, but she's very well known, an influencer in the personal finance space. Jessica Roy, a longtime journalist, was with the LA Times before. She's at SF Chronicle. This is funny. So she's not a utilities columnist, like utilities as in like the electricity that's letting me work on this computer right now. Utility is the right word. So she's like a service journalist. So she writes news you can use is a phrase that you might have heard before. It's just, practical things, practical tips for consumers related to personal finance, not utilities. Rick Morgan, Puget Sound Business Journal. Frank Botek, buddy of mine, he's a good guy to know, with local radio. You keep going, Kai Rizdal. If you work in PR, you're probably going to be looking at this and being like, okay, marketplace would be great. I'm probably not going to pitch the host. I'm not going to pitch Kai. We're looking for producers usually, as opposed to hosts or anchors or the journalists who are in front of the camera, reporters who are in front of the camera. We want producers, in particular segment producers or booking producers. But that's, something that you might pick up on if you're in PR. We've got Robert Frank at CNBC, Neil, San Diego Union Tribune, Henry, Pacific Coast Business Times. So a lot of local media, right? We're seeing some podcasts here, some blogs that are specific to finance, financial publications here. We've got Chad Clinton, director of PR at Milken Institute Global Conference up at Beverly Hilton every year. So Chad and I have also worked together. If you've been to Milken before, if you know anything about that conference, it's not really fit for, you're not going to see a lot of wealth managers and financial advisors. Even if you didn't, so it looks like we're going to have to scroll to the right because we're missing on that formatting part of the assignment. But even if you just read the description of the Milken Institute Global Conference, you're going to see that, okay, probably not going to be a fit for me. But this column right here is really important. It, again, illustrates the importance of principle number one, starting with your target audience. This column is really good, well framed, why it's relevant to the target audience. The reasoner got that exactly right. We want these notes, right? We want to know exactly why each person was included and why we think it's going to be good for us getting in front of our target audience. Okay. So let's again go back to our scenario of me not knowing anything about PR. And maybe as I'm reading this list, I'm thinking, okay, my overall assessment, and this is just to illustrate, is number one, I'm seeing a lot of local publications, Puget Sound, SF Chronicle, San Diego Union Tribune, etc. And I like that. All right, so maybe in my case, I like that because I like the boots on the ground, brick and mortar approach. I like in-person meetings, don't love virtual meetings. So let's say I want this media list to be broken out by local markets. I want to focus there, but it'd also be nice to have some more national media. So far, I've only seen NPR, CNBC, and LA Times. That's really a national publication. So let's have the AI add a little bit more of that. And I'm also seeing a lot of like traditional, news, print and online news. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of, podcasts or newsletters or other media types and formats represented. So again, sticking to principle number two, I'm going to try to get to expand in that direction. And again, I would want to be thoughtful about which content formats are best at reaching my target audience. So this isn't going to be a great prompt, but I'm going to tell the AI to expand. Okay. And then I'm also going to take this as an opportunity to educate myself actually as to all of those different formats. Cause I'm like, I can think of a few podcasts, blogs, print newspapers, online, digital, news, but what else is out there, right? So let's use this as an opportunity to educate myself, someone without a PR background, as to what other channels there are that reach my audience, where they're at. And then lastly, looking at Milken, I'm like, okay, I really want to think about this conference strategy thing. So, give me some more advisor specific or advisor relevant conferences. And I want to get familiar with the conferences that should be on my radar. Okay. So let's say thinking about all of those, I'm putting together this prompt right here. Um, I'll move my face. So I'm saying, remember, I should see the entire table without having to scroll horizontally. I want both local and national, so organized by local, because that's important to me. But I also want a little more on national, or a lot more of each. And then I want a lot more of different formats or types of media. And then I want you to educate me. Give me a list of all the different formats that we should consider for a media list, including podcasts, newsletters, and others. I only want to give a couple examples. Again, I don't want to pigeonhole the AI reasoner, right? And I want the list to be expanded to account for them. I want a lot more contacts, and I wouldn't go to the Milken Institute conference, but there are a lot of conferences that are specific to advisors. It'd be good for me to know which ones those are, and have some more details: how many people go, what the focus is, where it takes place, etc. And then I'm going to instruct it to change the media type, a column that I'm adding right here. Add a column where you specify media type to conference. Okay, and then we're going to hit send. Again, it's got some questions. And again, I think these questions are really smart. So first, what media types would you like me to prioritize? Here's a preliminary list. Feel free to add or remove. I'm not going to add or remove because I don't have a background in PR in this example. But this first question is really emphasizing principle number 2, and it's asking me to prioritize which channels actually reach my target audience. And again, would it improve my prompt a lot if I, actually triaged these or was able to, dictate which ones to prioritize? But again, in this case, I'm not going to. I'll just say all. Second question, this is a great idea. Again, it opens my mind to other channels, goes back to principle number 2, right? So Chamber of Commerce, local accelerators, think tanks, things like that. Absolutely. And I'll say yes to this. And then number 3, should national media also include vertical specific outlets? I really like this question. This third question is fantastic, because here's what this teaches me, even if I know nothing about PR. It's that there are different levels at which I can reach my audience. Okay, not just different channels, but different levels. Here's what I mean by that. So there was a lot of local, as you saw in the first media list, right? A lot of local, market specific publications, and we asked in our prompt the next list to be organized by market. Okay, and then there were some national. We asked for more of those. What this is calling out is that there are some what we would call trade or industry specific publications, in this case specific to the industry of finance, but publications that reach family offices or are about estate planning or retirement planning. And those are obviously relevant to me, right? So the third principle that this question is illustrating, principle number 3 about media list building, about PR, is that you got to think about different levels to reach your target audience. The big 3 levels being national or mainstream, local, and then here, trade or industry specific. So national, local, and trade. And they're all super important in a PR strategy. They're all important legs of a good PR strategy, okay? So the AI reasoner, again, is teaching me principles about PR, okay? It taught me principle number 2 with those clarifying questions that it asked earlier, and is continuing to educate me on it with these first 2 questions. And then here, it's taught me another principle about PR, and is continuing my education in PR, right? So we're going to answer these. I'm going to say, please include all of those, media types. I'd like both, of these, all of these, and yes to all of the above, right? So just yes to everything, and we'll see what it spits out. Okay, great. So now we've got our second draft of the list. This one took 8 minutes, citing 27 sources with all the reasoning outlined here and all of the citations here as before. So you can take a look at those. We've got, just like we requested, local media broken out by different markets. So we've got Bay Area, we've got LA, and so forth. Looks like we're still dealing with the left-right horizontal scroll problem. So I'm going to have to look into this issue later, this formatting thing. I'll do some research after that, after this video is done. I'm not going to go line by line. There's way too many contacts here for me to do that. I'm just going to kind of pick out some things that we could highlight. There are a lot of different directions that you could take this project, right? Depending on what stands out to you, depending on how you want to refine it. So I'm just going to kind of think out loud as to how you could take it in some different directions. But we're just gonna pick a couple. Okay, so let's start with the Bay Area. We've got San Francisco Business Times Chronicle. We've got TechCrunch, Connie at TechCrunch, the All In podcasts. Okay, right off the bat, I think one of the things that will stand out to me is if my wealth management firm is targeting small business owners, kind of, in the more traditional sense, like mom and pop stores, as opposed to startups, like fast growing, Silicon Valley type startups, then I might direct the AI to get away from startups and focus more on small businesses. Maybe that's just not my target audience for retirement plan business. So maybe that's one of the things I'll include in this next prompt. Again, just to kind of illustrate what a direction that I might take this in. We've got some, NPR syndicate, some local NPR. So that's good. Again, this host versus producer thing that I was talking about earlier. Bay Area Council, great. So we've got think tank, we've got events, Western pension and benefits. That's good, and we've got some rationale here, just as before in this relevance to Coastal's audience column. Okay, so that's SF. Let's look at LA Times, LA Business Journal. LA Chamber of Commerce, great. We've still got million. We'll have to correct that, or maybe that's something that we want to call out again. ACG, SoCal Retirement Plan Sponsor Summit, another conference that again gets us in front of, as noted here, 401k decision makers. Okay, great. One of the things that's standing out to me already, another thing is for SF and LA, like maybe I want more local news, kind of pure play local news, local radio, local broadcast and TV. So, for LA, that might be KTLA, NBCLA, ABC, like those kinds of outlets. So I might counsel the AI or direct the AI to go in that direction and to find more of those outlets and add them to the media list as well. More of the same, San Diego, you can see it here. Connect, again, we've got that startup focus, but I think, this is a pretty significant expansion over what we had earlier, right? And you've got a lot of what we're looking for in terms of a diversity of media types. We've got some interesting events that we can look into, and we've got some pretty robust notes in Seattle as well, the Seattle Times, Puget Sound. Okay, GeekWire, Morgan is a VC, Collab Fund. Okay, so again, we might be directing this. This is another example. GeekWire, this might be another example of like, hey, maybe a little too tech focused, a little too startup focused. Let's do local news. But hey, we've got a pretty good starting point for outlets that we could be considering, events that we could be considering. Great Financial Planning Association. That's a fantastic one to consider as an advisor. That's a good add to that list of conferences that should be on my radar. Okay, so Central Coast, Santa Barbara, good. A lot of chambers of commerce, right? And FPA again. So, and then here's the notes. Okay. So that's all of the local markets that we asked for. And then as we also requested, we wanted the national media broken out separately. Again, I'm going to be looking at this list like I don't know anything about PR. So I'm going to have to look into each of these names one by one, and it's going to be an educational opportunity for me. Or if I do know these people, I've got PR, finance PR background, I can give feedback on this list right away, right? But either way, we're going to keep a human in the loop and probably learn something along the way. So this is a good ad. Anne, retirement reporter. Steve is not at Barron's, hasn't been for a while. So another direction I could take this is to tell the reasoner, like, hey, you're giving me a lot of people who have left their publication, right? And you need to check your process. You need to figure out why. You need to make sure that you're giving me people who are still at the outlet. I'm not going to be overly prescriptive. If that's my next prompt, I'm not going to tell the AI like, okay, here's how I would do it. I would, Google them, make sure that their bio or their LinkedIn shows that they're still at that publication, or their their Twitter bio or whatever. Like I wouldn't do any of that, even though that's maybe personally one of the things that I might try. I would just, again, give it the problem and say, I need you to solve this, and then let it decide how it's going to reason through that problem, because I think it'll come up with something pretty intelligent, right? Hank at Forbes is good. Cheryl at Fortune. David Carlisle. Sarah is. I don't know if she's at Closing Bell anymore. I think she's at Squawk on the Street, but that's markets coverage. So earlier we had retirement. Now we have markets. Ted Seides, Barry. So this is technically, I might consider this a competitive wealth management firm. If we've got Barry and yeah, Josh Brown, big LinkedIn following, big influencer in finance, but might be considered a part of that exclusion that I gave the AI in my very first prompt. So I might take these out. Matt Levine doesn't really take guests or cite sources for his money stuff daily column, the written column, or the weekly podcast. So I might remove him on those grounds. Michael Kitts is well known in the financial planning universe. Jeff Benjamin, again, another example of someone who's not at this outlet anymore. So he's at ETF.com. You could prompt the AI, again, here, you could prompt the AI to check its process. 401k specialist, plan sponsor. Okay, so a lot of plan sponsor stuff, HR, Schwab Impact, of course, we know about. Morningstar, of course, Barron's Top Advisor, Milken's popping up again, Future Proof, of course. And okay, so that's the end of the list. Okay, so I'm looking at this. I'm seeing a variety of media and covers retirement. We've got markets, we have ETFs, 401ks, HR. And even if I don't have a background in PR, I think this is going to get my wheels turning. Like, hey, there are all kinds of stories that wealth management firms, that financial advisors are quoted in, right? All the time about retirement planning. You saw markets. You could think macro, like volatility, tariffs. I'm shooting this in March 2025. ETFs, or you could think about different products, right? Mutual funds. You could think about active versus passive. 401ks. You could think about benefits. You could be, talking in stories about employee retention, things like that, and on and on and on. So this is probably making me think like there are a lot of different stories that I could get into, which leads us to our fourth and a really important principle in medialist building, which is that you want to think of where you fit into all the stories that your target audience cares about. You want to think of all the stories that you might fit into. Okay, and in this particular case, I'm gonna make that the focus of this prompt. All right, so I'm gonna say here that we want to get away from startups. We want to focus on small business owners. And then I'm going to say here that we're missing a lot of the national media who regularly cover topics that, that I feel like our company or our client could end up in. And I'm giving you some examples. I'm just making this up. Let's say these are the ones that I'm passionate about, but you could really say anything. And again, it's not so much about giving the right examples. It's just getting the AI to figure out like what my goal is. And I'm asking it to expand its search accordingly, to organize the list by topics. And then let's say I'm treating this as an educational opportunity, right? Maybe I'm thinking like, you know what, it would be kind of cool to know for myself personally what those topics are, what those topics that financial advisors are regularly consulted in or cited to ask to offer their perspectives on, what those stories are, just so I know like what I can expect to kind of be the hot button things where people are going to be the most receptive to my pitches. So I'm going to ask the reasoner to provide me with the list of topics that most frequently feature advisors so that I know what stories we have the best chance of being included in. Okay. And then I'll hit deep research and then hit send. Okay, so I sent the prompt in, and again, I've got some clarifying questions, which is great. I've got 3 here. Question number 1. Do you want me to focus only on media that feature fee-only RAs like mine, or include others that, other types like wires and brokers and hybrids? Okay, this is a great question. This is getting me to think about my peers and competitors, like where are they showing up in the media? And if that's where my head's been at, this actually leads me to another principle. The AI is kind of pointing out a 5th principle of good media list building, which is to think about where your peers are showing up. Now, that could take a lot of forms. Maybe we feed the reasoner a list of my main competitors, and then that way we can do an audit of where those guys are showing up. We ask for links to their previous coverage, things like that. Or maybe we feed it a list of firms that I aspire to be like, do the same thing. Or we ask it for a list of the wealth management firms that are most frequently cited by the media and on what topics. We could take that in a lot of directions and educate ourselves. But yeah, principle number 5 is we got to think about where our peers are showing up. That can lead you to some good opportunities to build some good media lists. Okay. So that's question number 1. It's a good question. I'm going to say I want you to focus on all of them. All right, for the purposes of this one. Number 2, would you like a list of specific reporters or contributors? Okay, I'm going to say, I want the specific names. I don't want just like publication level info. For the small business owner focus, should I also include? This is a wonderful question. If your company or client is a wealth management firm, it probably has an ideal client or a niche, right? Like a market segment that it specializes in servicing. So you probably don't want small business owners in general, right? You want specific types of small businesses, or there's like a particular type of small business that just shows up a lot in your book, right? Or in your client roster. Let's say you have a lot of like VP plus executives at tech companies or whatever. So the reason again here is emphasizing principle number 1, that you always start with your target audience. And throughout this conversation, I think you've seen that all of these inputs would be so much better if we had that target audience more clearly defined at least than like high net worth and small business owners. Like, what does that even mean? But this is helpful because it shows us the importance of clarifying our target audience. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and answer this question with all the above, specific please, and no small businesses in general. All right, and we'll see where we go. Okay, so we've got our third draft, took 10 minutes, citing 27 sources, and just a couple of things that I wanted to point out that I thought were interesting in the reasoning. First, I saw that it was trying to look for the identities of people on staff pages or mastheads, and it pointed out that there might be hidden or non-existent detail because it didn't have a login, because the reasoner doesn't have a login. And then later on, found when I was looking at the Wall Street Journal profile informative but lacking direct contact info, considering muckrack for email details. Okay, so one of the things that you might have spotted in these lists as we've gone along is that the contact info sometimes leaves something to be desired, right? Sometimes you've noticed it says like just LinkedIn page, or there's just a general alias like an info at website email. So this is actually, and this is not what the video is about, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning. This is where you want an AI agent, like, for instance, OpenAI's Operator, because the agent has the ability to take over your browser and then autonomously work. And if you have logins, which if you work in PR, you do, to different media publications, and you can get behind paywalls, or if you've got a tool like Muckrack here, or Precision, or Apollo, or Rocket Reach, or any of these other databases where you can quickly get good, fresh data on contact information, then what the AI agent can do is it can go into those different logins and then get the contact info from there. And you'll actually end up using that approach with much better contact info in these media lists. Now that can be a separate conversation or video, like how to do that. Right now we're just focused on reasoners, not agents, because reasoners are more accessible. Like access to the research version of Operator costs $200 a month if you're going with OpenAI's. So yeah, that's why we're sticking to reasoners for now. Okay, just wanted to point that out though. All right, so let's go to this list. So we've gotten away from startup focused contacts, I think. So yeah, well, that's reflected here. You don't see the startup focused contacts. And one thing I'm noticing is it seems like these were like the additions listed separately. They weren't made to the updated consolidated list, which was one of my original instructions. So I might have to look after the video to see why that instruction was ignored. But you've got some good additions that are not startup focused. We've got the national media organized by topic, just like we wanted. We've got retirement planning, tax, market and investment insights, charitable planning, small business and succession. Great. And then here's that research that we asked for, right? Those topics that advisors get cited in a lot okay. So, we could keep going back and forth with this conversation with the reasoner, and you could probably think of a lot of different ways that we could make the media list better. I'm not going to. I'll stop right here because I think you've gotten a clear enough sense of how powerful reasoners are and how good they are at this media list building thing. Like, remember, we started not knowing a thing about PR, right? I was trying to play that role as best I could, and we've gotten three drafts at this point. The reasoner took what, 8 minutes, then 8 minutes, then 10 minutes for this one. So 25 minutes in total for all of its thinking. The reasoner has also taught us five very important principles about media list building. So we're coming out a lot smarter than we were before. And it's also given us some extra research along the way, right? About the different formats or types of media that are out there and the different topics, like the ones you're looking at here, that advisors are frequently featured in. 20 minutes for all of that, right? This is the new and improved version of 15 minutes could save you 15% more, right? Or more. Like 20 minutes could save you so much wasted time and resources and energy building a media list that might be low quality anyway, right? So this is a great start, and I think we'll stop here. That does it for this example. Let's move on to the next examples. The rest are going to be much faster now that you've gotten a good look at how to use AI reasoners for building media lists. Okay. All right. Now, in this example, we're going to go back to O3, use deep research from OpenAI, but this time I'm going to play the role of someone who's spent a lot of time in PR. I've built a ton of media lists over the years. I know what they should look like. I'm sick of building them, and that's why I'm coming to this reasoner for help. My company, or the client that I'm working for right now, is an AI copywriting company, and we're going to try to get as close as possible to one-shotting this project, as in having the AI give us something in one shot that we don't need a second prompt for. It's good enough where we can just take it, edit it, and be done. So I'm going to dump in a prompt here. It's the same format as before, but a few key differences that I'll highlight. First, in the task, I'm being a little ambitious. I'm asking for three separate media lists right off the bat. And remember principle one to start with your target audiences. So those are the three here: marketing and sales teams, software engineers, and VCs. I'm also asking it to include at least 50 media contacts in each list, so 150 contacts in total. And I'm not pigeonholing it. I'm not saying, you have to stick to 50 or under. It's at least 50, include all of those that are relevant to our target audiences. I'm only including this because in a lot of the experiments that I've run with using AI reasoners to build media lists, the first response is typically going to have only about a dozen, maybe 15 media contacts, as you saw in the previous example. And we're just going to start with as many as we want, in this case, 50. Format, this is largely the same as what you saw earlier. Watchouts, in this case, the watchouts are going to focus on the list being up to date as possible. So making sure that they haven't changed publications since. And then the context is less about my company and all the boilerplate that you saw earlier, and more about what needs to go into this media list. And they're largely reflective of the five principles that we covered earlier, right? So this first sentence is all of the boilerplate that we're going to include. It just tells us what the company does. And then more details about the three target audiences. Again, that's principle one. So defining, who those target audiences are. So we're looking at marketing and sales teams. That's going to be our customers, our users. Software engineers, those are the people who are in our employ, and then VCs, people that we need funding from in the future. Principle number two, think about all the channels. Here's how we're going to prioritize them. So this time we're not going to just say, give us, the whole hog and don't discriminate. We're going to say, no, we have some that are more important to us. I'm just using these as examples. Let's just say that these are the ones that our leadership team thinks are the formats where we can best show off our product. Okay. And we're also adding that note that for video or for broadcast, we want producers. Again, not just hosts and correspondents. Of course, we're not limited to those types of media. We're not trying to pigeonhole the reasoner. This is principle three, all the levels. So, of course, we want national. Of course, we want trades. And then when it comes to local publications, if they are included, they should focus on the Bay Area. Because again, going back to that VC target audience focus. And then we're going to say, here are the stories that we feel like we can be included in or that we have some expertise in. This is principle number four. Think of all the stories that our audience cares about. And these are just ones that, I made up for our client or for our company. Marketing trends. Here's some subjects that we could talk about. Sales trends. Here's some subjects. Software development trends. Here's some subjects. General AI trends. And then stories that might be of interest to VCs. And then finally, principle number five, learn from our peers. Our peers and competitors include, I listed some here. These are real companies. And there are a lot of others, and we'd like to be right there with them when they're showing up in the news. Okay, so that's our prompt. We've got deep research on. Let's go ahead and send. All right. So we've got clarifying questions, of course. All right, so here are the three questions. Question one, should I prioritize media contacts who are open to being pitched directly? And it seems like they're using, if the contact information is publicly listed as a kind of proxy for how open they are to being pitched directly. So we're going to say, again, as I mentioned in the previous example, what you're really going to want for contact info is an agent, AI agent, like Operator. I'm not expecting great things from a reasoner in terms of, up-to-date email addresses or whatever. So I'm just going to tell the reasoner to do its best. For question number two, yes, we do want to mix. And then question number three, similar to question number one, again, agentic AI is going to help us here if you've got those login credentials or subscriptions. So we're going to say no. In this case, don't exclude those contacts. Okay, and then we'll hit start. We've got three lists: one for marketing, software, and VCs. Okay, that's great, just like we asked. And we've got all of the columns fitting in one view without me needing to horizontally scroll left and right. So that's good. Contact info, not here, not the most important thing right now, as we indicated above. All right, let's check out the marketing media list. I'm not going to go through every single one of these names. Ad Week, Ad Age, Marketing Brew, great. Trades are fantastic. Marketing Profs. So that's a company that trains marketers. They've got a ton of their own content, and that's a great idea to get in with the vendors that face your target audience. So really good ad. NP Digital, that's a digital marketing agency, so it might be a good prospect, not just a source of earned media. Steve Martech, that's right up our alley, right? We're a marketing technology company, an AI writing company. So this is great. He's a blogger who doesn't really have guests or sources, but a good one to know. Marketing AI Institute, they've got a bunch of stuff, a podcast. They don't have guests on the podcast, but events where they have speakers, webinars, blogs, newsletters, educational materials. Yeah, this is a good list. Jill Conrath, sales guru type. She's got over 360,000 followers on LinkedIn, so good one to know. Uh, you know, so you can see, yeah, you can see a lot of these good ads to this list. And Mike Shields newsletter and podcast. Newsletter has like over 5,000 subscribers. Podcast has guests on it. Shelley Palmer, consultant at and professor at Syracuse, so good one to know. And yeah, that more marketing dive. That's marketing trade publications. So pretty happy with this list. It's a good thing for us to edit, for especially those who have some background in marketing media. They can kind of look at it with a more discerning eye without having to search every single name individually. Software, this is great. So we've got big publications, mainstream and more tech focused. We've got a bunch of newsletters here. The Pragmatic Engineer has over almost 1 million subscribers at this point. Podcast that features guests, has a blog, and a lot of newsletters, a lot of communities, so dev communities, which are helpful to know about, right? Like Stack Overflow, and other places where devs are spending their time. So, you might be looking into hackathons, Discord and Slack channels, Reddit threads. There's all kinds of places where you could get into the weeds to get into these dev communities. And then VCs. So yeah, a lot of the big names in VC and startup coverage at some big publications. TechCrunch, which Yahoo just sold. We've got Axios, New York Times, The Information, etc. It's good. It's good that Alex is noted as being ex-Forbes, and he's working on kind of a stealth venture right now. But good to kind of keep an eye on him, and good to know that the AI reasoner kind of picked up on the fact that even after kind of a long time, a prominent role at Forbes, he's not there anymore. Um, more reporters. That's great. So we've got the anchor, not the producer, so we can kind of fix that. And we've got Okay, Union Square, Andreessen. So we've got some investors, Connie. So we've got some investors on this list. YC, Marriott YC. Okay, so maybe not for this particular list, and we can kind of direct the AI reasoner to to focus on those. Uh, some duplicates maybe we're struggling to. Okay, so some duplicates maybe we're struggling to hit 50. We can kind of troubleshoot that. But all in all, a really good set of three media lists that jives with what we originally asked for, right? So I think you're seeing that if you know how to do the prompting and if you know what you're looking for and if you keep those, at least five kind of key basic principles about media list building in mind, uh, and do some experimentation with reasoners, you can get a really good output, at least through something like O3's deep research. Okay, let's go ahead and pop over to Claude, do that, and then Perplexity real quickly. All right, so now we're in Claude. We're going to be working for a commercial design company. That's our client or our company. We're going to be using 3.7 Sonnet, and we have it on extended mode, and that's available to paid users. As of March 20th, Claude got internet access, so we're going to be able to take advantage of that after toggling it on. All right, so here's our prompt. We're gonna have a very similar format as before. In this case, we're working for a commercial design company in LA, and we just want one list that has both local and national contacts. And we want, our target audience here is small business owners in the restaurant, retail, and healthcare industries. We want at least 100 media contacts. Okay. Format is the same. Watch outs. So in this case, I have, in addition to the keep this updated kind of watch out, we also have one here, which is do not include media who cover commercial real estate from a financial perspective, because obviously that's a lot of news stories, and we want to exclude those because we're just talking about design here. And then context. So here's the boilerplate about what we do. And we're getting more specific about our target audiences. We want to prioritize, these are the channels that we want to prioritize. Again, same comment about producers. We have expertise in, and we're just dumping a bunch of stories that we like talking about. So restaurant trends, retail trends, healthcare office design trends, interior and exterior design, etc. Small business trends in general, including inflation, chain constraints, and hiring, and local regulations, zoning laws permitting. I just made a bunch of this stuff up, but just to kind of illustrate what we could do for the context dump. All right, let's hit send. All right, so there's our prompt. It's thinking, it's synthesized the input, and you'll notice that it works much more quickly, and that could be good or bad. It renamed this commercial design media contacts. Okay, we've got some clarifying questions. So no, go straight to the full list because my viewers have been watching this video for long enough already. Create a structured template with outlet categories and job roles that you can fill in. No, add only information that you have, no empty fields. And number three, search for specific information about key media outlets in your target. Yes. Have both local contacts and national. Okay. So we're thinking real contacts only, both local and national, 100 media contacts, priority media types. Need to be careful about those watchouts, decided which columns to include, started creating them, and then um, while I have knowledge of, okay, so we've got some privacy concerns here. The web search, which we now have access to, and all the citations that you just saw. All right, and here's the search results. Okay, perfect. So we've got a bunch of local broadcast TV. Fantastic. That was my big request. That was my number one priority. So we've got every local broadcast station here, print and online magazines. Great. So we've got trades that focus on, food and beverage. We've got LA Weekly, LA Times, Architectural Digest. Perfect. I feel like Architectural Digest could be moved down here, Modern Luxury included, but You've got all these contacts who, okay, so we're going to have to remove residential. That could have been another watch out, like, hey, I don't want residential design because we're a commercial design company. Social media influencers, food and design. This is probably not going to work because these people are more focused on the food. They're taking pictures of like chicken sandwiches, not the kitchens in which chicken sandwiches were made. But anyway, healthcare, industry media. Um, okay, healthcare design, Becker's Hospital Review, great trades to have. Retail, industry media. We've got retail reporters, retail trends, fantastic. Architecture and design publications. So I like this organization. I think it's really smart, and we've got a chance to continue following up. Okay, so we're on Perplexity. Just to wrap up real quickly, the reason I'm including Perplexity is because you can actually get a limited number of deep research or other enhanced searches without having to pay. So this is probably the most accessible of the tools that we've explored so far. And all you have to do is punch in your prompt here. We're going to use the exact same one that we used for Claude, and we're going to hit go. Okay, and this is what Perplexity gave us. So we've got a long, long list of a lot of local news, broadcast stations, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we asked for. We've got LA Times, the local news, LA Magazine, LA Weekly, and Architectural Digest. So we're starting to get into the design magazines. This is great. Interior Design Magazine, and then some sector specific ones, hospitality, restaurant, restaurant business online, chain store age, retail. We're getting retail. We're getting healthcare, Becker's Hospital Review, modern healthcare. We're getting some social media influencers and some small business coverage. So we've got Forbes Small Businesses, Small Business Inc., Entrepreneur CNBC. Okay, great. We've got contact information here and the categorization of the media types here, location here. Okay. So this is, I think, a really good, we can stop here, really good picture of how to use AI reasoners to do your do your media list building. And to be honest, I don't know why anyone would ever do it the way that it's been done historically, right? Which is like on a spreadsheet, super manually, you're Googling one at a time. You're kind of building from the ground up, or you're taking an old spreadsheet and you have to update it, and search, for each person's contact information individually and things like that. Like all of that manual work that takes hours and hours and hours, and so much effort we can use AI reasoners for now. So would highly encourage that you pick pick one of your favorites, start experimenting, start playing around with these things, and use it for your particular use case. And reach out if you have any questions. Happy to chat about any of these. There's going to be more videos coming out about different applications of AI reasoners, and we'll start looking at agentic AI tools too, and how they really change the game in a lot of ways. All right, thanks so much.